Hello, my name's Jordan Windsor and this is Explorer, my 2D mobile platformer. So the genre of the game, 2D platformer, it's set in a space theme, developed in Unity 2D. It uses pixel art assets primarily, and the platform is to be on a Google Play Store, so an Android game, and the target audience 13-year-olds or older, for the sake of the puzzles and some of the advanced features in the game. So the core mechanics of this game are to collect score crystals around the map. A couple of them will be dotted around the level that the player can collect, but they're optional, just to give the player the chance that if they want to go and collect them, find ways to go and get these. Flipping the player to complete parts of the map upside down. So this will include perhaps flipping them and then they have to go and complete a puzzle, then they'll flip back around. Just kind of adds another element into the game. Phasing between two dimensions. The reason it says dimensions like that is simply because it's on a 2D camera. So as it's on a 2D camera, the player can phase out of these dimensions, kind of click on an icon or interact with an icon in the level, and this will allow them to access platforms that they previously weren't, and then solving mini puzzles. So touching the levers to move obstacles out of the way, and then dropping boxes onto buttons that activate certain things. So for the advanced features of this game, there's a light that surrounds the player that begins to close in unless they're moving. So if a player needs to stand still for a certain thing, or they're waiting for to be able to travel to somewhere, then this light will begin to close in on them. It kind of tries to get them to keep moving as much as possible. Otherwise, this will make it harder on them to complete, and they'll be able to see less of the map. And then a weather API, which I'm going to be describing in the next slide. So as you can see from here, we've got 4 weather types. So we've got clear, cloudy, rain and snow. So using this weather API, cloudy has an effect on the game's difficulty in terms of this light closes in a lot faster than normal, which is obviously in comparison to the other 3, it's a lot faster. It'll make it a lot harder. And then rain and snow collectively, they just add a visual element into the game, so they trigger a particle system in the game that will, I suppose, replicate what the weather is from this weather API. So the weather API in more detail takes data from Birmingham and uses it for this game. So taken from the website, it uses a certain amount of codes, including like thunderstorm, rain, snow, and even extreme conditions as well. So what the code does is it analyzes the response from the API and searches for a specific keyword. So as you can see, it will search for clouds, it will search for snow and rain, and this executes a specific thing that will happen in the game. So I've got a demonstration of the game being played in BlueStacks, so an Android emulator. So the player can obviously use the buttons to navigate left and right, and then certain little pop-ups to kind of help them start the early level of the game. But they can navigate, there's bouncing platforms, there's moving platforms, and the idea is to just navigate around these. Player can still restart the level at any point they want by clicking pause and then just restarting it, but the idea is to just try and add this little element of difficulty in the game in general, aside from the mechanics, that kind of just have you make more precise movements. So the player will interact here with this visibility, and as you can see, it's kind of like phased him into the second dimension. So these platforms that he previously was not able to access, or wouldn't have been able to access and fell straight through, he can now access to get back up onto the platforms and continue further in the level. And then this will have a phase out, so they'll, after jumping on these platforms, you can see there's another icon that when the player collides with, it will phase them back in, and this will put them back to normal. So then you've got the upside down one. Now this flips everything upside down, but you can see some part of the assets in the environment still match the upside down. I felt like this kind of gave it this kind of like nice space immersive feel, that even when you're upside down, the environment matches you. It kind of sort of hints in a way that there is the possibility of going upside down, or it kind of just adds this strange feel to how the game looks and how it feels. So the player will complete these little mini puzzles, perhaps like pushing boxes onto the buttons, and then just navigate his way through these platforms, whether it's obviously bouncing or moving. And then when he comes to this icon, which is the same, it'll flip him back in the same direction that he previously was. So you can phase in and out again, and the idea is to basically just travel, use these and complete the little puzzles along the way. And as you can see, that would have been too high for the player to reach, so he uses this little platform to gather the crystal. This kind of using what the player can think of, and then enter the portal, and you have your level 1 complete. So the pitch kind of versus the development. So we changed from the initial NASA API to the open weather. This was specifically because the NASA one didn't necessarily have that many features to it. The idea was to have it change the game's background, but that's only one feature, and that is kind of the only feature that it can be used for this game specifically. Whereas the open weather one, as you can see, allowed for a lot more. There was like 3 different possibilities, including changing stuff that looks in the game, and then also changing the difficulty in the game at the same time. The original idea was to have it vertical, so the player travels upwards, but I felt like this kind of gave it that endless feel, similar to other mobile platformers, kind of like Doodle Jump, for example, of the player traveling up these platforms and making it feel endless. Whereas the horizontal kind of gives it that feel, travel from the start to the end, gives kind of enhances the levels, I suppose. And you travel from one point to the next. And I suppose whether it's horizontal or vertical doesn't make too much of the difference, but personally I felt like gave the right feel for the game. And then add in the phasing between the dimensions and upside down view, which weren't previously mentioned in the pitch, but I felt like they gave extra parts to my game. But the parts that I decided to keep the same were decreasing the radius of the light, but also merging this with the API, which gives it's that extra function of the API, and the difficulty increases because the light closes in faster based on the weather. So for the market, obviously it's an Android platform game, so put it on the Google Play Store. The idea would be to have it as a free game, possibility of ad integration. This is based on the success of the game and the popularity and how much, I suppose, revenue in terms of downloads this can get. Obviously alongside new levels, this is a given. There would be more levels on development. So I suppose it could be difficult to compete with popular titles, so taking Doodle Jump or Mario, these kind of like well-known games in a sense. But I feel like with the unique features in both the core and the advanced mechanics of the game, or the features of the game, if provided they're nailed and they're done to a good quality, I feel like it should be able to contend with these well-known platformers. So for my product, it has a unique use of the API for both visual changes in the game as well as game difficulty. So it's using multiple features of the same API to change the game in different ways. Pixel space themed platformer. Now, I haven't personally seen a very popular one of these necessarily. And then we've got challenging puzzles. This is with the phasing in and out and the flipping upside down as well. So these give the opportunity to add more into the game. A lot more can be explored with the puzzles and the way the player navigates the level, especially if they can phase in and out of these platforms. It makes it harder, requires more thinking and more strategic moving, which I feel like works hand in hand very well with the moving light as well, because if you have to be constantly on the move in the game to not die or to not have to restart, then having dimension changing and flipping upside down might delay this and it might cause you to run into close calls and things like that. So that is my product. That is Explorer. Thank you for listening.